everybody. So I am back with Vince Lear, who is going to be sharing with you today and with me about why he became vegan and how that decision related or relates to his autoimmune condition. All right, Vince. Vince and I are doing a little series here, so if you haven't seen the other videos in the series, make sure you are subscribed to my channel. Vince, and we have something kind of interesting at the end, an interesting tip that Vince is going to share with you about how to eat certain foods if you have an autoimmune condition and you're on a plant-based diet, which is really important, and it's something that I've learned a lot about today, and he shared in our other video, but we're going to deliver that little nugget at the end of this video. But Vince, tell me, you know, we've known each other for 5 years or so. We both became plant-based around the same time, and for very different reasons. Hit it. Why did you become plant-based?
Mine was for health reasons.
Okay.
So originally it was about, it was maybe 14 years ago. I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which is basically an inflammation of the colon. And you'll see actually more commercials coming out now talking about different medications, and ulcerative colitis is very similar to Crohn's disease.
Yeah.
Where ulcerative colitis is basically just the small intestine area. And I didn't know what I had, and my doctor didn't know, and I really thought it was just gas pain in the beginning. I remember going to work one day and just being in this intense pain, and I'd be fine, and then all of a sudden the pain would like ramp up, and it would last for like 30 to 60 seconds, and then it would go down, and then I'd be fine, and then the next hour I'd get this same like intense pain to the point where I was like keeling over. Like I didn't know what was going on.
Was it every day?
It started off experiencing it every day. And then what happened is that hour between became 30 minutes between, and then 15 minutes between. Then I was like, this isn't something I can deal with.
This part of your stomach.
Yeah, it's in my whole the whole digestive system. So I went and saw my doctor, and he goes, I can't help you. You may have diverticulitis, you may need surgery, you may need this. He sends me to a GI. So I make an appointment, and it's basically, they're like, well, we're not sure what you have. So they say, try this medication, and then after a few weeks on that, I'll go back to him and tell him what my experience was. It's like, okay, let's try this, and let's try this. And so then I start doing some research on my own to figure out what is going on with me, because I feel like I'm just an experiment on different medications.
And you're eating at this time a standard American diet.
Standard American diet. Lots of meat and cheese and
dairy.
I mean, I'm Italian, so
yeah.
it was like, I'm just eating whatever.
Right.
So then I actually had to go to my doctor and say, can I get a colonoscopy? And he looks at me and he goes, why do you need a colonoscopy? You're not even 30. And I was just like, because there's something wrong with me, and I'd rather know what it is than trying to figure it out with all these different medications.
Yes.
To me, it's like, give me the information.
Sorry, I just got to tell Lucky. Lucky, this is my dog who's barking. Stop it. Stop. Thank you. Carry on. Sorry about the interruption.
No problem. And so we did the colonoscopy, and it comes out where you have ulcerative colitis. And I was like, what is this? Like that two words, I've never heard of this term before in my life. And he goes, it's inflammation of the colon. That's why, and the symptoms you experience, people don't talk about it because it's uncomfortable to talk about those types of symptoms when you have a lot of diarrhea, when you have a lot of blood, when you have a lot of cramps. Like that's not
it's not dinner party conversation, but really embarrassing, and when you're young as well.
Yeah. So it was kind of like, okay, and he says you can't eat any roughage, so you don't eat any raw vegetables, don't eat any of that. So my diet consisted mainly of bread, meat, rice, and cheese.
Let me just ask you something. I don't want to get too personal with you,
No,
but I know people are interested with the symptoms. And you said, there was blood, there was, diarrhea. Now, did it alternate or was it constant?
It was constant. It was,
Right.
it was, and there was a lot of urgencies.
Right.
So it wouldn't be uncommon for me to be walking into a bathroom door, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whether it's a restaurant, probably 20 to 30 times a day.
Are you serious?
Like, it would be, the urgencies would be almost every hour, where I'd be like, I need to find, and sometimes nothing would happen.
But it was
you
just,
have
wow.
that, like,
Wow.
and at that point, when it's in your colon, sometimes you can't tell whether I just need to let it pass, or
I
there's
really
something
need to
there.
go. Yeah, yeah.
So you're always playing it safe.
Right.
And
Oh,
it's,
how unpleasant.
and that was, so I went on through that, went to another doctor, because I was
Yes.
just like, something's not working with this one. And basically reiterated the same thing. Put me on some different higher meds. He put me on Prednisone,
Yeah.
which is a steroid, which worked at very high doses, but the problem is you can't stay on Prednisone at high doses for very long.
Right.
Problem with your bones and density and everything. So as I would taper it off, I get bad. So he was like, well, you're probably just going to have to live with certain symptoms. And I was just like, okay, something's still not
yeah, something's not right
working.
here.
So I ended up joining this group called the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, and you would run half marathons. And to me, I took it on as more of a personal challenge. It's like, I have this condition that's affecting me mentally, emotionally, physically. Can I actually walk, a half marathon? Can I run a half marathon? Can I do 13.1 miles?
Wow.
And challenge myself to do that with this condition.
Yeah.
And I did. I trained and I did it. Ended up with a stress fracture in my knee, but that's a whole different
That's
story.
another thing, yeah.
But during that time, I went on to something called the specific carb diet,
Yes.
which it's a book called Breaking the Cycle. And it basically tells you about how certain carbohydrates are bad for your intestine.
Mm-hmm.
So it really limits any kind of carbs that you can have when they're in a form of bread. So there was no bread, there was no pasta. Any carbs you got were from some sort of vegetable.
So were complex carbs allowed?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Right.
So anything, it had to be from a vegetable standpoint. You were
There were
allowed
specific vegetables.
Specific,
Right.
yeah. And then I would, like yogurt, you could find certain cheeses you could have.
Yes.
So I couldn't have ricotta cheese, I couldn't have mozzarella.
Yeah.
But there was this other farmer's cheese, because the lactose was at such a low percentage, like it was okay.
Okay.
So it was really different, and I saw improvement, but I still had all these symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
It just went from like here to here.
Right.
And I needed to get here. So I was just like, so I went on that for a while. I stayed on that for like almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out, I wanted to give it like time.
Yes.
Because these things don't change. You're not going to
Overnight,
wake up
yeah.
in a week and be like, everything's better.
Yes.
So then I went to the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation I was still involved with. I went to an event where I met someone who had the same condition. He goes, you really want to start looking at a vegan diet and having green juices. And I was just like, really? Like, I'm not supposed to have greens. I'm not supposed to have fiber. He's like, well, then I didn't realize that juices remove the fiber at that point, So I was like, you know what? I've tried some extreme stuff to get rid of this stuff. This seems pretty
I'll
pretty
give it a
easy,
go. Yeah.
And so I started having a green juice every morning. And I remember the first time I had a green juice, I went to the store, I bought a green juice, I brought it home, and I waited. And I'm like, I have to be ready for my body to
Yes.
reject this green juice. Had the green juice, felt fine. I was like, oh, let me do it a second time. So next day, I'd have a green juice. So then every morning, I'd go get my green juice. That was like my little thing. I'd go to the juice shop down the street, pick up my green juice, drink my greens, and I'm like, nothing's happening. So then I started moving on to salad. Then I had a salad. And I was like, okay, nothing's happening with the salad. And so it eventually just kind of moved on from there, and I started incorporating more vegetables. So I would slowly start incorporating these things into my diet. And that's when I noticed some of my symptoms started to go away.
Wow.
Now, I never fully went off my medication. And I still take some meds.
Mm-hmm. Which is actually a really good point, because I think a lot of people sort of think, particularly on a whole food plant-based diet, they think, they feel guilty if you're taking any meds. And you shouldn't do at all. I mean...
Yeah, there's, and you've touched about it before, where there's a lot of people that preach one way for everybody, and it's not like that.
It just doesn't work like that. Everybody has different health conditions, and therefore, you've got to work with what you've got.
Yeah, and what I did too is I took a food sensitivity test. So everybody talks about brown rice being good. Brown rice, I'm sensitive to.
Sorry about this. My dog, we're sitting in my yard. My dog is barking. It's really annoying. We don't want to have to do all these edits all the time. So I'm just going to tell him to shut up. Lucky, I love you, but zip it. All right. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. And so, so where was I?
We were like, it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah, so
everybody has to work with what they've got.
Yeah, so like brown rice. I have issues with brown rice, and I noticed it because I would try to eat brown rice because everybody's like, brown rice is healthier, have it more than white rice. But because the way it's not processed and it still has the husk on there and it's more difficult to digest, that was causing me problems.
Yeah.
So you really have to listen to your body and figure out what's working and what isn't.
So because then about 5 years ago, you became completely whole food, plant-based, and you felt that really made a difference.
Yeah, I felt an improvement to the point where like a lot of my symptoms were gone.
And do you think that has something to do with the fact that eliminating meat and dairy from your diet reduces dramatically, reduces inflammation?
Without a doubt. I think dairy, when I work with clients, dairy is the one thing where it's like, we need to figure out a way to get you off dairy.
Right.
You know, even if you want to continue to eat other foods, and we'll work through that, but dairy is the one where there's just no benefit to dairy.
Yeah.
That I can see. You could get all the benefits from dairy you can get from a more optimal plant-based source.
Absolutely. So tell me, because I think what I wanted to get to was, by the way, follow Vince. He's got, I'm going to link to his YouTube channel. He has a YouTube channel. Let's support him. Let's follow him. Let's get anyone you know who has any kind of autoimmune or, colitis or anything like that. Just follow Vince, because the thing that I love is, obviously he's not a doctor, but he has empirically gone through this studiously, switching to a vegan diet, but doing it in a way that works for him.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to get to, because we talked in another video, and I want to get to this now, is some of these, the way that he eats some foods. So in a plant-based diet, obviously, I eat a lot of legumes. I eat, lentils and beans, and I eat lots of nuts. These are sources of protein. But Vince has them in a way that he has a few little tips. So let's go to those tips I promised you, which make them more digestible for you if you are in the process of healing your gut. And I will also say that what I really appreciate with Vince, we were chatting about this before, is he said, look, I don't say heal. I don't use the word heal. And I think we have to be really careful about using that word when it comes to these conditions, because some people, a better word is managing it beautifully. And you get a lot of, I'm cured, I'm healed. And, I think we have to be careful with that.
Yeah, because I'll go through periods where, you have remission.
Yeah.
Where I don't have any symptoms. And then something will happen. And it's more than just food. And that's where I really appreciate a lot of your content, and I've learned a lot through essential oils, through meditation, through sleep, through all these different environmental factors that could affect autoimmune.
Oh,
that's not just, granted, food's a big part.
But it's not the only factor.
And it's not the only thing.
Yeah.
And that's other things that I've been trying to work into my life from a holistic point of view. Moving, yoga, which I still need to start doing. But, just these different things.
We'll get him doing yoga.
Will help you.
All right, so tell us about how you manage it. Because, Vince eats nuts, almonds, tofu, and various grains. But this is what he does to make them more digestible.
Mm-hmm. Well, for instance, almonds. Almonds, if you don't sprout them or soak them in water, there's something called phytic acid, and it makes them really difficult to digest. So even if you're eating them, you're not your body isn't absorbing all the protein, all the vitamins, all the minerals.
And for somebody who does not have any impaired digestion, which I don't, I'm kind of all right with that, and I get all my, minerals. I'll probably get even more if I do what he's now showing us how to do. But if you do have impaired digestion, then you really want to follow this tip. So sorry.
Yeah, so no, what I do is I just soak them in water with about so I usually use a ratio of 1 cup of almonds to 2 cups of water. And I'll usually add about a teaspoon of salt.
Yeah.
and soak them. You could soak them for a little as 8 hours. I usually soak them for about 24.
Yeah.
And then I'll rinse them off, pat them
Yes.
dry, and put them in a dehydrator.
That's it. So you're dehydrating. We're going to get to the end of the video in a minute because Lucky, he's starting barking again. The reason is that we're in this, you can't really see, but we're in a yard and there's squirrels running everywhere. And he sees a black chihuahua and he sees those squirrels and he can't help himself. Okay, so that's the almonds. But also, the other thing that Vince has is that he has here lentils and quinoa, and he buys them sprouted, which
Yes.
is such a good idea. And this brand is called True Roots for both these, and they do a lot of sprouted grains, and I love True Roots, so we're going to link to them.
Yes.
And even your tofu
Yes.
is sprouted, which
Wildwood.
is wildwood have sprouted, and sprouting is going to be so helpful for you. So I think that that's such an incredibly good tip. So sprout your legumes, either sprout them yourself and just give them finally that little tip about, you said, it's easy to sprout nuts, but not as easy to sprout.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, please.
It's so much harder for me from a time standpoint and a money standpoint. When I do almonds, it's easy. You just soak them, forget about them, put them in the hydrator. But the process with, if you want to do, you have your lentils and you have your beans and then whatever else you want to do. Like I could get sprouted lentil trio. So you have all the different types of lentils. Same thing with the quinoa. You have all the different types because each type has a little something different.
So this is 3 different kinds of quinoa: red, white, and yellow quinoa. So that's why they call it the trio. Same with the lentils: black, red, and green lentils. And so you get the 3 all in one. Brilliant True Roots, by the way. And they've sprouted them. So they've done all the work on 2 different counts.
Yeah. And the price point for sprouted lentils and quinoa and legumes, the delta isn't as much than sprouted almonds or cashews.
Yeah, that's so true.
Like the price point.
When you buy sprouted almonds, they are, that's just unaffordable. They're so expensive.
It's basically usually about $20 for a small bag.
Yeah, crazy, right? Nobody can afford that. So again, and whatever country you're watching from, often here we live in Los Angeles where they have sprouted everything that you could want. Seriously, don't they? It's ridiculous. Sprouted chocolate, cacao, delicacies that cost you an arm and a leg. But you might be in England or a different country. When I go to England, you wouldn't, you'd be very hard pushed to find these things. So, maybe look into getting a dehydrator, and definitely sprouting. It's not difficult. As usual, absolutely brilliant. I really hope that this has helped you, and that gives you hope. If you have autoimmune or digestive issues, I really hope that Vince has given you some hope and some tips that you really can go a long way to going, as he said, instead of just going from here to here, from here to here. And I've actually seen it with him, into really helping to heal and alleviate some of those debilitating symptoms and actually be able to digest some of those nutrients, beautiful nutrients that you need for optimum health. So watch our other videos that we've done by subscribing, and definitely subscribe to him. Links for all of it underneath the video, and I'll see you next time. Thank you, Vince.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, there are hundreds more. And please also visit my blog at sophieuliano.com for detailed reviews, recipes, DIYs, and more.